with you on WTIC News Talk 1080, and delighted to be with you. And on a beautiful Patriot Day morning. You know, usually when I've had the chance to fill in for this show, I sit down and check this day in history and try to find interesting goings-on. But it slipped my mind that today's Patriot Day until I realized I was having Rob Sampson on, who I think is Connecticut's leading patriot. And Rob, I understand you did you've got some Patriot Day activities today. Is that right?
Hey, Joe, great to join you this morning. So weird, I'm not used to calling you Joe. But tonight in the town of Wolcott, I will be joining my good friend and colleague, Representative Gail Master Francesco, over on the, actually I think we're at the VFW tonight to celebrate Patriots Day. Something about Wolcott is that Wolcott was the first town in Connecticut to begin celebrating Patriots Day on a regular annual basis, and that's because of the amazing Stacy Perone-Petta, who was a tremendous patriot from inside town. And, we all work together, Gail, myself, and you, over the years to help bring Patriots Day awareness to Connecticut. And in fact, it became a state holiday just a couple of years ago. Not a paid state holiday, of course, but a day of recognition in Connecticut, thanks to you and me and our hard work at the Capitol pushing that through. So people should know that Patriots Day is an important day to remember. It's essentially the day that freedom rang. The shot heard around the world. It's the day that our way of life began, in my opinion.
Exactly. We're talking about Paul Revere's ride and the Minutemen gathering on the green in Lexington and turning the British back in Concord when they came for our weapons. Let's not forget what that was all about, and what sparked that war was the attempt of British troops to take away the defense of the colonists, and that was a step too far. And because they were armed, they were able to turn back over the course of the years the greatest army on earth up to this day. So it's something very much, I think, to celebrate, and I'm glad you're taking part in it. So, Rob,
nothing more American than that, Joe.
That's right. That's right. So, what's going on up in Hartford? What do you see ahead of us? We've got until May.
May 4th.
May 4th.
May 4th at midnight is the CNADA, which is the final day of the session. And of course, I always appreciate the final day because at least that day, you're going home at midnight.
Well, it's very much
leading up to that. You may not.
Yeah, I tell people that it's a lot like exam time in college. It builds to a crescendo, and those last couple of weeks really get, to my mind, ridiculously busy. It would be much better to do the work in a more orderly fashion. But I think there's a side, just like there's students that take pride in staying up all night to do papers. Legislators have developed a kind of a thing about how hard they work over those last few weeks. It's not ideal because you're dealing with too many bills, and you're dealing with them when you're really worn down, because there's a stretch towards the end where you just kind of drag yourself home sometimes at 1 or 2 and 3 in the morning, and you got to drag yourself back up there by 10 or 11 o'clock. It doesn't lend itself to clarity, and I wouldn't say to a high-level discussion, which is what we should be having, or good policy. What's the big stuff still hanging, Rob?
Well, I just got word this morning that the Senate is going to be in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and probably Friday.
Yeah.
And then next week, I imagine we'll be in every day. And then, of course, we'll be in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the final week. So not too bad, actually, knowing that I've got only 2.5 weeks. It's going to be grueling, though. And to your question, I mean, I don't know that there are too many of these, big signature items this year hanging around. A lot of things have come and gone. There's a big gun control bill that we managed to really neuter in the Senate. There was the aid and dying bill, which died just recently. They're still pushing the usual things, a lot of planning and development type issues, interfering with local zoning. There's the equity element that seems to be appearing in all kinds of things. And of course, there's the run-of-the-mill overreach that happens every day up there. I mean, I serve as the ranking member on the Labor Committee, and the assortment of labor bills that are just contrary to every American principle, is endless. They just keep coming for more. The other day, we debated a bill that allows striking workers to receive unemployment. That's not even logical in my world, but that's just an example of the kind of thing that's coming. They're going to try and do captive audience this year. It's the usual array of big government overreach. And sadly, I wish there was more Republican opposition to a lot of these things. Republicans in Hartford, I think, are demoralized to some degree. We're outnumbered 2-1. We haven't had any really big victories in a long time. And I think it's a real opportunity for us this year. And sadly, we don't have enough candidates to actually make a big difference. I was told just yesterday that out of the 36 Senate seats, there are 12 seats where we don't even have a Republican registered to run. And out of the 151 House seats, there are 70 seats where we don't have a Republican running yet. We've got to solve that problem.
70, did you say?
70, yes.
That's amazing. Folks, we just had, before the break, we were talking from Zach in Southington, who was saying, is it easy to get involved in politics? Let me tell you, if you're in one of those 70 districts that doesn't have a Republican candidate, it would be very easy to get involved in politics. And you would find that a campaign is not that difficult a thing. It's you don't have to be expert in it. You just have to have some common sense and listen to some good advice. Put a jacket and a tie on, go down to your town committee, meet the chairman, and tell him you're interested in running, and you could well be the nominee. That, from what Rob said, there's 82 legislative seats currently going begging on the Republican side. And, even in a district that's tough to win, or we'll even say a district that's impossible to win, it's important that we have good candidates, and it's especially important, I think, that we get our message out, that we have people out there that are talking about what the party stands for and why people ought to be supporting it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you bring all that up, Joe. And I was listening before I came on, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts about how there is no middle. I think that's one of the big battles going on within the Republican Party here in Connecticut and across the country. And I mean, it happens even on the local level. I think you have some people who are involved because they truly believe in Republican principles and values and want to move the agenda of the Republican Party, which to me is the American agenda of freedom and limited government. And then there are people that want to their agendas themselves. So if you're listening and you're interested in getting involved and being part of the Republican Party, or even potentially being a candidate for office, and I think there is a small window of time for people still who want to run for legislative seats to get involved and make that happen. Show up if you're somebody who wants to push the Republican agenda. If you want to push your own agenda, just stay home for me, because we have enough people like that already.
I agree. If you don't have a clear belief in politics, I don't know why you'd want to have a leadership position. It's like saying, I want to take over the ship, but I don't really have any idea where I think it should go. And sometimes I say about this thing about compromise, people say, well, can't you find a middle position? If you were lost in the woods and half the people wanted to go east and half the people wanted to go west, to go north is not a compromise. We've got to make a decision about which way we're going in this state and in this country, and we've got to follow through with it. And it's too often with the Republicans, the Democrats have come out in the past and said we need a big tax increase, and the Republican answer is to say, well, let's compromise and have a little tax increase. At a certain point, you say taxes are too high. We're not going to keep compromising. We're going to stand our ground, and even if we lose, we'll be standing for something that we can rally people to and make a point about. Hey, speaking of taxes and spending and all those issues, this is not the big budget year when a new budget is proposed. This is the budget adjustment year. Are there any budget adjustments coming?
Oh, yes. And in fact, they're treating it much like a budget year because there's piles of federal money hanging around and lots of people who want to spend it. So there's a lot of discussion going on. The Finance Committee, which I no longer serve on, I did serve on it a couple of cycles, has been meeting regularly and at length because there is so much legislation out there about how to spend the influx of federal funds. And of course, I think the Republicans are trying to do a good job of making sure that even if the Democrats do want to spend this money, that it's done in a way that doesn't carry forward our massive deficit problems. Which, we right now, Joe, if it wasn't for COVID and the grants coming from the federal government, the state of Connecticut would have a monumental budget deficit, maybe the biggest one ever, maybe bigger than 2010 when I first ran for office and Dan Malloy was coming in with a $3.5 billion budget deficit. It would be that kind of situation, and instead they're patting themselves on the back. I saw a Facebook post from the governor just the other day claiming credit for our beautiful economy, and I'm just like, it's ridiculous. I mean, you could be the worst business owner in the world and running your business into the ground, and if somebody backs up a truck full of money to the door, that doesn't make you a very good business operator or a good economist.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I won the lottery. Look how thrifty I am.
Look how smart I am. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is going to be frustrating this fall hearing Ned Lamont take credit for what is a temporary happy budget situation when we have nothing but deficits down the road and we have done nothing to solve our underlying problem. Hey, Rob, stay with us for a minute, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk just a little bit more about legislative politics. And also, we were talking about the many seats that are going to go uncontested unless candidates step up on the Republican side soon. Your own political experience is a good example of how people can get involved. Tell us about what got you into it back in 2010 and what you had to go through.
Sure. Well, if you remember, 2010 was the Obama midterm. And, I think, I was always very, very politically involved. Even as a teenager in high school, I followed politics. I even, frequented my local RTC and got involved even on the Reagan campaign back when I was a kid and stuff like that. But really, I didn't decide to take a big jump in until the Obama years, because I saw my country that I loved so dearly really slipping away, and the value system that made this country great being corrupted, really. And that was really the point at which I learned that there was a major split between the political parties, which I think through most of America's history, all were American ideological parties, both Republicans and Democrats. In fact, to your compromise point, I think it was a lot easier to compromise when the parties were much closer together.
That's right.
And today, the Democratic Party has gone completely off the deep end. They want to remake the United States of America into something else entirely. And it's very hard to compromise with people who don't even believe in the same ideological setup that the country was founded upon.
Yeah, the Constitution we keep going back to, that's the rules. That's like saying when you play baseball, it's 4 balls and 3 strikes. And you can't be negotiating that. You've got to say we all agree to this and then let's play the game.
That's right. There's a lot less respect today for those rules in so many ways, whether we're going to legislate even following them. I mean, I've watched so many bills go through the Connecticut General Assembly, which are unconstitutional on their face. And it just doesn't seem to bother a lot of people. And I'm like, well, how can you even have that attitude? And that's because they fundamentally disagree with the Constitution. And that's why we've got to use this tremendous opportunity we have. I mean, the Democrats have dug themselves a giant hole. You've got the crime issue. You've got rampant inflation. You've got the COVID authoritarianism that's gone on. And you've got the usual mishmash of big government regulatory garbage that they bring to us every year. People are waking up to that, and I think that Republicans will do well in this November's election. But we got to have candidates, and even more important than that, I think we've got to choose good candidates from the people that we have now. There are candidates running for lots of different offices. I think we have 5 or 6 candidates in the U.S. Senate race. We have 3 candidates in the Secretary of State race. But I can tell you there are distinct differences between those candidates, and I encourage people to pay attention to which ones are actually interested in fighting for the American culture and saving it, and not just looking to get elected for their own sake. And I think that's obvious if you look hard enough.
Yeah, it really feels like the slide that has taken place since 2010, the terms of the debate have changed radically, and not just since 2010, but I'd say especially since the George Floyd disaster and the rioting that followed that, and then COVID. I feel like we came out of it into a very different political landscape where we're arguing about things like are men men and women women, and should kindergarten children be taught about gender and sexual gender preferences and so forth. Debates that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago, and now are not only taking place, but those who are willing to speak out against the insanity of it are characterized as being sexist, racist, or otherwise not worthy voices within the political discourse.
Right, and it's also keeping Republicans from pushing back on these things in a lot of cases where they should. It's because they are concerned more about being vilified and mischaracterized than they are about actually standing up for our principles. And I've done my best to actually stand for those principles every time, and as you did before me. And, we've taken a lot of heat for it, but I think a lot of people also respect us, including people on the other side of the aisle who know that we are actually fighting for what we believe in, and we're not just trying to appease everyone so that we can stay in political office. This is the danger of the Republican Party nationally and here in this state, is that the desire to win, even if it means moderating our position and actually going along with the Democrats, is the means to that end. That is not the answer. And Republicans need to realize that. I think one thing that's happening, Joe, is that there are so many new Republicans who've been activated over the last couple of years, and they want genuine, strong Republican representation. And I don't think that the usual weak Republican status quo that we've become used to in Connecticut is going to do it for them. So I'm happy about that. I'm hoping that they hold Republican candidates to account, and after November, they hold a Republican majority potentially to account too.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you, Rob. Hang in there. Be the strong man of principle that you have been, and we will be back after the news to talk a little bit about CBAC.